What's the most redneck thing you have ever done? I'm Scottish, but the closest I got to being redneck was in Kentucky, when I shot a shotgun at planks of wood in some old man's homemade gun range in his garden while drinking moonshine. Did I do it right? TLDR. Helped my dad and his friend to pry the horseshoes off of a dead, bloated horse floating down a river while I was in a 12-foot dinghy, trying like heck to counterbalance the both of them so we didn't all go for a swim. When I was young, ages 5-9, I lived on a boat at a marina with my parents. One day there was a horrendous smell and my father found a dead bloated horse stuck under the dock. Most likely died on a farm and fell in or was put into the river rather than buried by a lazy farmer. My dad didn't want to just push it loose since it would just become someone else's problem. He was the manager of the marina, so he spent the afternoon calling all over town trying to get someone to help him get rid of it. Animal control wouldn't help since it was deceased. Sanitation didn't want to touch it. The fire department wouldn't help. He called everywhere and no one would help. By this point, he's had a few drinks and decided to heck with it, and I helped him push it loose, gouging holes in the carcass with grappling hooks due to the decomposition. Dang gross. We joined my mom and sat on the back deck of the boat watching the horse float away gently into the sunset. A while later, one of my dad's best buds shows up after he was off from work and my dad starting recanting the tale of the dead horse to him. He goes through the whole long story about calling everywhere and receiving no help from any agency and that we cut the horse loose to get snagged downstream. The next words from my dad's friend were, did it have any horseshoes on it? Because he loved to play horseshoes. Next thing I know, we're in a dinghy heading downriver to catch up to the stinky rotting corpse before the sun set, crowbars in hand. Used copious amounts of duct tape to keep my bumper attached to my car. Had multiple dates that consisted of driving down a dirt road, then sitting in the car drinking cheap 7-Eleven beers and listening to the radio. Oh crap, my truck's dual exhaust pipes were held on by zip ties for over a year when the brackets holding them up rusted apart. That was pretty redneckish. I once answered a door in tighty whities, combat boots, and a tractor company hat, holding a shotgun. Jehovah's Witnesses still haven't been back to that house, and it's been 17 years. My 77-year-old granny asks them for the password before she opens the door. When they say they don't know it, she says it's P-U-S-S-I-E. Yes, that's how she spells it. Then she opens the door topless and she says honey. They ran to their bikes and pedaled away just as fast as they could, then laughs hysterically. I hit a deer with my truck at 55 miles per hour. Trashed the front end, later rebuilt with 1-stroke 3C channel and 1-stroke 4-angle steel. I had no one to help me load it into the truck before the tow truck showed up. Unfortunately, I could have managed, except I just had neck surgery a few days earlier and wasn't supposed to lift anything. So after I got home and got some help, I drove my other vehicle out and loaded the deer on the flatbed trailer I'd made out of an old camper. It was the middle of winter, and routinely down to -20 and -30, so for a few months I hung it in the unfinished, unheated addition to the house and periodically cut pieces off to cook on my smoker, which I made from 2 55-gallon steel drums. We were driving the diesel Chevy on the back roads at night. A deer was running alongside the road. Swear to God we made eye contact. Then he jumped towards the truck. The sucker hit me. He snapped his neck when he hit, threw his butt in the bed and took him home. Got us some venison. During Hurricane Harvey in August, summer buddy and I decided it would be super fun to take our cars out into this open field and go mudding. Well, we probably lasted 5 minutes until we both were stuck in 2 feet of mud. We call everyone we can get a hold of to come get us out. Turns out no one could get through this mud. 8 hours later there were 7 cars all stuck in the mud waiting on the tow truck to come. Interesting day. Tied a large sheet of plywood to the back of a pickup truck, then had friend drive said truck down a muddy dirt road while I surfed on said plywood. Source: from Southwest Georgia. I rode my bike a few miles to the Salvation Army store, bought a VCR for $3, and rode back home with the VCR sticking halfway out of one of those drawstring backpacks that you get for free sometimes from sporting events. The VCR rocked back and forth and kept hitting me in the head the whole way back. The year was 2014, and I was in my late 20s. My husband, when we first started dating, was put through my family's tests, which included things like answering correctly to what kind of beer you drink and showing that he could split wood effectively with a dull axe while we all stood around the burn barrel at my uncle's place. My bachelorette party was a weekend of camping and rifle practice up at my parents' gold claim in the middle of nowhere. I've got tons of stories, but those are two that stand out as most redneck. If you're using a dull axe, you're already doing it wrong. Take care of your tools properly, people. I went to Texas Motor Speedway 9 years in a row for NASCAR. That, collectively, it's like Mardi Gras and a giant tailgate combined. With racing, I highly recommend. Bristol's where it's at, baby. It's got all the folks from Walmart, plus fast cars and free crap. Growing up, my dad had an early 80s Nissan King cab truck. First he broke the frame and gas tank by running over a snapping turtle and going into a ditch. He towed it home, welded the frame back together, dropped the gas tank and fed the gas line into the cab, and had 4 jerry cans sitting on the back bench. In the winter he used a propane torch to keep the windows defrosted. Holy crap, that's terrifying. I'm always worried about the behind the bench gas tank in my 71 Ford. That's a whole new level. Although I have gotten bitched at a few times for sticking a lit torch in my engine bay on cold mornings for about half an hour before worm so the truck will start. Spit my dip into an empty bottle. Forgot about it. Was driving my truck at night. Thirsty as heck. Grabbed the bottle. Thought it was Pepsi. And took a big swig of dip juice. Gag reflex FTW. What's even worse is when you don't dip but your roommate does, and you're pee drunk and decided to mix your rum and sweet tea in a Snapple bottle which your roommate also uses as his dip spit canister of choice. Story from my dad in his college days. So dad hates public restrooms. One time he was headed home from college and had to poo pretty badly. He was a considerable distance from home, and the poo was apparently coming faster than expected. He decided that he'd cut open and carve out a watermelon and use it to poo in. He did just that. If that isn't redneck, then I'll kiss your butt. I'm curious as to why he thought crapping in a watermelon would be better than using a gas station toilet. Got weird looks from neighbors as I had turtles hanging from trees to drain to make turtle soup. I love turtles, but a lake I frequent up north Wisconsin had an overpopulation problem. Only time I had turtle soup, it was fantastic. Just don't like killing turtles. In high school my neighbors got rid of a decent couch. My friends and I scooped it up and put it in my wood to sit on to drink beer. We'd put a tarp over it to keep it from getting wet. I used to go out into the woods and take a nap on it all the time. One time I napped from like 6 PM and woke up at like 4 AM. Apparently I was tired. Turns out it's really freaky to wake up in the woods, pitch black, not having any idea what time it is. I put a old hit and miss flywheel farm engine on a 1980s Craftsman riding lawn mower and would drive it around my property and street drinking PBR. This used to be a dream of mine growing up. Not all heroes wear capes. Cousin who lives in the boonies. 8 All you gotta do is pull this back and let this go. Instructions on how to ride a dirt bike. Alright, frickin' me. 1 head injury later and a few days in the hospital. I realized that's not how you ride a dirt bike. I lived in a very small town for a summer and did that thing where you just drive up and down Main Street drinking beer every Friday and Saturday night. I grew up in a town of about 500 people. Dragging Main was about all there was to do, except drive around on the dirt roads out of town while drinking. We also used to sit in the school parking lot and drink. I put a dip in, got in my truck with my dog and shotgun stowed in the back and went cruising listening to Merle Haggard, mudding and trail rides with a group of friends on ATVs and dirt bikes. I don't have a most redneck event. It's more of everyday little things. Same here. I don't think I could pinpoint a single moment. My life is full of redneck events. I'm literally sitting here with a sheepdog under my arm and a roll your own cigarette hanging from my lip with a fermentation barrel on the dresser across from me and a saddle on the arm of the couch wearing Crocs with my washing on a clothes horse in front of the stove and 3 old washing machines and a crying hound outside the back window. So everything on a daily basis, AMA. Collected a bunch of used toilets off Craigslist, drove out to the boonies, and shot them to flinders with a machine gun. Good times. I was at AutoZone at about 10 PM getting power steering fluid for my caddy. I had just gotten out of my car when a busted up Camry rolled up, and two rednecky guys get out. I heard one of them say something about underglow, so I said something like make that sucker light up the streets. One of them said heck yeah and asked me if I wanted to rip his vape. I took a big old pull off it and they both said frick yeah dang near in unison. Got their underglow and peeled out. I felt the euphoria for weeks. God, I love Wisconsin. Sat down in the outhouse at a trail ride to take a pee and got picked up, outhouse and all, by a guy on a tractor. He was moving the outhouse to another part of the field and didn't know I was in there. When I was growing up, we used to have an annual neighborhood party called the Triple Decker Party, because our house was part of 3 houses in a row with decks. Clever, right? The big event was having a lawn tractor race around the neighborhood. Not only did we race, but everyone dressed up the tractor, and my dad went so far as to soup the dang thing up. One year, another family had their tractor go up in smoke. Literally, it was a ton of fun when I was a kid, but looking back on it, it was pretty frickin' redneck, especially for suburban NJ. A friend of mine has a dog that is scared of loud noises. One day she got loose and he couldn't find her, so he gets his pistol out and wanders through the neighborhood firing random shots. After a few minutes she shows up, runs in the house and hides behind the couch, her standard reaction to gunshots. One of the neighbors was a bit freaked out by this and called the cops. Fortunately, the neighbor doesn't seem to have recognized my friend. He spent a tense few minutes carefully staying inside out of sight while the cop car was in his neighbor's driveway. Hit a deer, killed deer, broken shoulder, by severing spinal cord and slitting its throat. Dragged deer across the road and into the back of my truck, which is pretty impressive since I'm a 120-pound woman. Knocked on my friend's door at 1 AM inviting him to drink beer and skin and gut aforementioned deer. Proceeded to drink beer and take apart aforementioned deer. Most of my redneck stuff was in college. Stole a traffic barrel and turned it into a floor lamp. Tried to steal a street sign for Big Texas Valley Road. Trespassed into the college's equine center around midnight and rode horses bareback. Ran over a rabbit with my Astro van. Knew I would feel guilty if I left it to rot, so I scooped it up and had it for dinner. Did a burnout with my Toyota truck through the lawn of my high school chemistry teacher. She was a bee and kept picking on me in class. Didn't have any marina. Dad added spices to ketchup and gave it to me. Didn't like it at the time, but looking back it was super sweet of him to do that. Miss your dad. Hope you're having fun up Valhalla. No, you died fighting. Still wish you were here though. Drive over to my neighbor's house and pluck corn off the stalk and eat it raw. Went four-wheeling in my ex-boyfriend's truck in a mud pit and was applauded when I didn't get stuck. Dated a guy who was missing teeth. Loved moonshine and had a full arm sleeve of the Confederate flag and Robert E. Lee. He had a big dong and knew how to use it. It was my excuse for staying with him for 5 months. Oh, where to start? As young boy out with his friend on the back 40, there was this bull, I mean a big MFR. Well, me and my friend Junior looked at the bull and the 7 feet high fence. Decided to shoot the bull in the balls. Bad idea, some bitch jumped the fence and we ran our little asses so hard and dang near ran across the top of the creek to get away from that sumbitch. Another time we all snuck out, bought liquor off a wino that went and got us some alcohol. We sent it out after drinking half a case of beer. We rounded up a bunch of buddies, decided to go mailbox baseball. Everything was going fine until Dale Hole or Dennis, I think it was, hit a mailbox that was solid as a rock. Bat swung back and banged him right in the face, broke his nose. Or heck, I got worse than that. I think I found my ex-husband. We had an airsoft war on the back of our cars while driving through the field throwing fireworks at each other. I almost slide face first off a 4-door sedan. I'm lucky I made it through high school. Probably wiring a couple cans together to fix my muffler. Worked long enough to sell it, lol. I did tell the buyer it was a band-aid fix though. I once spent the afternoon shooting holes into an old refrigerator with a .22 rifle. I had a dog at my feet and a glass of tea to drink while reloading. I was wearing cutoffs. It was summer, my freshman year of high school. I sat in the back of a truck while those across from me drank their light beers. We were on our way to go swimming at the river a few miles away. Here, a good many beers would be had in the shade, always accompanied by some fresh Mary Jane. I once threw a Halloween party when I was in college and my best bud from my hometown had come to stay for the weekend. As the night went on, he decided to start showing off his new party trick. Said party trick featured my friend quite literally biting off chucks from glass cups. After we had shown off the trick a dozen times or so, the inevitable happened. My friend gashed open the inside of his mouth just below the bottom lip. We both agreed that a trip to the hospital was out of the question. He looked me dead in the eyes and said, "You gotta sew me up, morning Clark." So I rummaged in my junk drawer until I found my sewing kit. I opened it up and found a sewing needle. We got out a lighter to sterilize it with heat. But before we could, I got the bright idea to bend it so the sewing would be a little easier. As I applied my bend, the needle snapped in half. My friend said, "What are you going to do now, morning Clark?" I looked him dead in the eyes and said, "I got you, brotherman." I turned the burner on the electric stove onto full blast, set the tip of a steak knife to the cherry red element and waited. Once the knife was orange, I told my friend to pull his lip down. I stuck that knife to his wound and seared that sucker shut. Shot a deer from an empty beer-can-filled fishing boat with a Marlin 336C. My uncle had to drive all the way home to get his hunting paperwork so we could bring it home, which was a 2-hour trip. I'm not sure how the logic came about and if it was a stupid drunk concept, a valid concern, or both. But our attitude was, we can't just leave it here, but we also can't take it home. A farmer has a fox, a chicken and a bag of corn he needs to get across the river. The fox will eat the chicken will eat the corn, etc. Two rednecks have a boat full of empty beer cans and a dead deer. If they take the deer, they get busted for hunting without a permit. So they shovel the empty beer into the pickup truck and put the deer in the boat. The uncle drives back home to get his hunting permit while Liquilunch poses as a guy who is just out fishing. But little does the park ranger know, he has a dead deer in his boat. So there I am, completely s-faced out on a lake, fishing with a dead deer. I'm halfway asleep when I get a bite. I wake up and rush to the stern, totally forgetting what's in the boat. I trip over a tackle box and land right on top of the deer. The deer lets out the most horrendous dead deer fart I've ever come in contact with. I know I'm about to be sick. Deer in the boat, fish on the hook. I sling my upper body over the side with both arms extended up over my head, gripping the rod. So there I am, throwing up overboard with a fish on the hook and a dead deer in the boat. Just for the record, the fish got away. Ironically, at the time the absolute funniest part of the whole ordeal was when my uncle got back with the truck and I had to head back in. The boat was so weighed down, I had the little 15 horsepower motor at full freaking throttle traveling about 3 miles per hour towards shore. Woke up hungover on the floor of my bedroom. Mum opened the door and threw in a bag. It was some chips, fries, and chicken nuggets from McDonald's. I was 14. She knew what I needed, and she delivered. Got bonked in the head by an AK-47 at an illegal shooting range once. I'm British. Lots of guns. We do like our guns. Duct tape is a staple in my life. Probably lots of other little things too, but I can't think of them offhand. We lived poor though, so if anything could be fixed with duct tape rather than replaced, that was what we'd do. My mum also spent a lot of time in southern USA before she had me, so maybe this is connected somehow. I feel like a bit of redneck rubbed off on her and then onto me. Haha, just can't think of anything else at the moment. I've worn my house shoes until they had holes through the soles of them and then placed duct tape over the holes and kept on rocking them. Me and my best friend went over to his aunt's house in the backwood and we went squirrel hunting with a 410 shotgun and looked for and caught frogs in the mud. Mud must have been a foot deep. I purchased a bucket of chicken at a walk-in place which didn't have any seating. So I ate the meal in the parking lot, sitting on the tailgate of my truck. People drove by and gave me a look of approval, which I replied by tipping my cowboy hat. Went noodling with my cousins. Shot bullfrogs from a canoe. Ate said frog's legs. Ate squirrel that I hunted and killed. Corn diving. You drive about 10 miles per hour and you get on top of the car and dive into a cornfield. Looking back on it, we probably could have found something better to do than that. Well, I am from Ms. and growing up we did all kinds of crazy stuff, but most of it was just good clean country but friendly country crap. We did a lot of outdoors stuff and played a lot of pranks on each other. I had a great group of friends growing up. I think I may have been 14 at the time. My friends and I took the hood off an old, derelict car, chained it up to the back of a four-wheeler, and pulled it through a field of mud while two of us rode the hood. My mom was not happy with the state of my clothing. I'm powering half my house. 3 bedrooms including 2 TVs, 2 massive desktops, phone chargers, 2 consoles, fans, heaters, lamps, etc. Off of one outlet beside me. My dad's got electrical certifications and calls it a blatant fire hazard, but we can't do anything because we rent and the rest of the house has no heat power going to it. We duct taped large industrial strength wiring all along the floors and base molding to get it out of the way like it's a cheap theater. Shrugs. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.